Long before I became qualified as a channel for spirit, I was exploring out-of-body experiences. I read a series of books as a teenager by Robert Monroe about his exploration out of body, and I was absolutely fascinated with this. I must have formed a really clear intention in my consciousness that I wanted to learn how to do this. I wanted to become an out-of-body explorer because that's exactly what happened. When I was 18 and I was a freshman in college, living in the dorms at the University of Oklahoma, I began to have out-of-body experiences. I sometimes laugh when I think about how this might have been set up because the mattresses in these dorms were so uncomfortable. I was sleeping on this little twin mattress and I could never get comfortable, and I felt this sort of restlessness at night when I was trying to get to sleep, and it may have contributed to that mind awake, body asleep state that's so necessary for you to uh, begin to explore out of body. So one night I was laying there and I was kind of restless, and I started to feel strange, and I sat up in bed and I looked around and I just could swear I was seeing auras or energy around things, and I wasn't sure what it was. I laid back down and I felt the distinct feeling that I was slipping back into my physical body. Instantly, I sat up in bed again, but this time with the physical body, and I could notice the difference, and I wasn't seeing the energy. So I started to think to myself, did I just sit up out of my body? I wasn't sure, but I was still feeling some kind of an energy inside of me, and something told me to just relax and be with that sensation. So I rolled over and I was laying on my stomach, and this awareness came into my consciousness about how to breathe. And I began to breathe in such a way that it energized the spinal column, and I could feel energy moving up and down my spine. And the energy kept building and getting stronger until suddenly I just launched out of the body. I went right through the floor and into the room below my dorm room and found myself in the computer lab. And at first I was just like this ball of energy. I could see the energy that I was made of. And I remember extending my arms and seeing the energy form into hands. And then I retracted them back and just became a ball of energy again. And I was just playing with this really fascinating state of consciousness. Before I could really figure out what to do, I came back in the body and began to feel the energy subsiding, but I knew something had changed. I knew that something very profound had taken place, and that this was the beginning of something new. So after that, whenever I would lay down to go to sleep, I would feel these sensations of energy come into my body, and it's like the second body or the spiritual body or energy body would be separated from the physical level of my vibration, and I would find myself floating in the room. It took me a while before I really figured out how to move, how to project myself. But after maybe 10 or 15 times of having this happen, I began to send out a signal for guides to teach me and ask for instructions for how I could learn how to move and project and explore. So this unfolded from there, and I began to experience new knowledge showing up that uh, gave me more freedom with how to move my consciousness. I don't know exactly where this came from. It must have come from guides, but they were invisible to me at the time. I remember one specific experience where I decided to go check up on my grandmother, who was probably 20 miles away. And after I found myself floating above my body, I projected to her house, and I wanted to just see how she was doing. And while I was there, there was another being that showed up, a guide. And this woman began to speak to me. I could tell that she was also a non-physical being. She was not like my grandmother, who was there in the room as a physical person. And this woman said that she was a spiritual guide of mine, and that she also had a physical body on the physical plane, and that I would soon meet her. 2 weeks later, very synchronistically, I met this woman and had lunch with her. And I told her that I had this experience where I saw her clearly. I saw her face during this out-of-body experience, and she said she was a spiritual guide of mine. And she said, yes, I've been watching over you for 12 years. And I was amazed. I asked her what she knew about me, and she began to describe things about my awakening and my experience that made it clear to me that she had spiritual abilities, and she began to give me instructions and ideas and information about my potential that gave me a whole new window of opportunity for choosing what wanted to happen next. And what wanted to happen next was nothing short of miraculous. I began to experience a very synchronistic blending of what was happening in the out-of-body state and the synchronicities that were unfolding during my life, so that I could see that not only was the inner plane real, and the things I was experiencing were absolutely real on another layer of reality, but they were very interconnected with the unfoldment of our spiritual development in the physical. So what happened next is a long story. There's so much to share about this. But what I can tell you is that over many years, I used this ability to travel out of body to answer questions about life, about the existence of things that are mysterious or still in the realm of the imagination or the unknown. Just about anything you can imagine that's spiritual or paranormal or having to do with unsolved mysteries, strange phenomena, things about humanity's ancient past, the potentials of the future. I began to travel out of body and to travel literally in time to see these things and to directly witness things that answered these questions. So a lot of what I'm going to be sharing with you is related to this. I'm going to be sharing with you the answers that I received, and yet I am by no means limited to any of the things that I have seen, because it just keeps unraveling, it just keeps unfolding. Whatever we think that we know, whatever we see in any given moment, whatever formulates our big picture, is just a stepping stone to something even more vast. And so that journey for me is, and has been for some time, a journey of constantly becoming a blank slate and moving into the not knowing and letting go of everything I thought I knew before, so that new knowledge can flood in.